that's been going on, which is really cool to see some newer runners playing. And I think Mano is a little bit rustier. I am not entirely sure how much time he has spent playing, specifically for the tournament, so this will be a fun match to watch, see what happens. Right off the bat here, we've got Ancient Lake. This is probably the most recognizable track in Diddy Kong Racing, given that it's the first in pretty much every case. And in terms of speedrunning, it isn't too difficult of a level, of a track. There's a lot of boosting involved, which can be a lot of fun, but as you can see them struggling with a little bit right now, there's a lot of problems with the AI in it, and even when you're going at the fastest speed, the AI is going to get in the way. They can do things like steal balloons, you can run into the back of them. There's some weird glitches that can happen where if you're going fast enough and you run into the back of one, they'll send you flying to the left or the right. It's a really weird physics interaction that the game has. No one has any idea why it happens, it's just the way the game is, which is pretty interesting. And you also notice this game does not have any rubber banding AI. No matter what, you are most likely going to be running into the back of them because they all run at a fixed speed. Fossil Canyon is a really cool track. It has two really intense, really cool jumps. We see Mano having a little bit of trouble with it. Mad Scientist actually gets off scot-free. And there is a harder technique that players will use on this track that I don't think we're seeing either of them use. But we call it Canyonless after the Mario 64 Cannonless trick. Essentially, as we see Mad Scientist get back into the cave here, what they typically do is they'll drift around the corner and grab that blue balloon that Mano just passed, and then do a very, very precise amount of drifts to find themselves over on the zipper that we've seen both of them take. And then they fling themselves into the canyon with the blue balloon. But looks like we are still pretty close so far. Everything's going pretty well. Jungle Falls is a really cool track. It's what I personally would really highly suggest playing a lot of if you're just starting out speedrunning this game. It's very, very fast, very tight, very, very technical. And the skill ceiling on it is very, very high. So no matter how much you play it, there's usually always something you can improve on. And given that this game has really complicated, weird speed tech, it's hard to master that. It's definitely hard to master it perfectly 3 laps in a row. All the while you have all kinds of things like lag and input lag and the AI to deal with, and a lot of it just kind of comes down to luck sometimes. That said, there's a lot of skill involved as well. Hot Tub Volcano is going to be our first plane track. One of the coolest things about this game is that there isn't just one vehicle that is exactly the same the whole time. We have 3 of them actually, so this is the second one we're seeing. And I think we're going to see Mano. Yep, Mano's going to get out of bounds here, which is a very, very easy to execute out of bounds trick where you boost down into the lava and barrel roll. And while you're barrel rolling, it puts the plane in kind of a weird state. And while it's in that state, you can very easily pass through that lava barrier without too much issue. Ooh, Mano clipping back in bounds. Let's see if he can get right back out again. Alright, nice. That was pretty clean. So yeah, it's really an interesting facet of this track, is that you can just do that, like, wherever. Pretty much anywhere there's lava, there's usually enough space to clip out and get out of bounds. And so now that he's out of bounds, all he has to do is go up and down on the track in kind of a really elongated oval and hit the checkpoints, and he'll be able to finish the race. It is important to note, however, that this is not a foolproof trick. It's not too easy. There are those checkpoints are very, very hard to make sure you hit every time. And if you miss one, the game is going to tell you that you're going the wrong way. And if you try to cross the finish line and the game thinks that you missed a checkpoint, it's not going to count the lap. So if you get wrong way, you have to turn all the way back around and go back to the checkpoint. And a lot of times that can be very, very slow. So already we can see a huge difference in time save with somebody who is using the clip and somebody who is not using the clip. It is important to note, however, that all of that time save is also likely, it's not entirely due to just the glitch. A lot of it can also be due to just general skill level in plane. Plane is hands down the hardest vehicle in the game. Hover and car are more comparable in terms of difficulty. Hover is likely the easiest, and there's some really interesting interactions with collision that we can talk about there. In plane, if you bonk into something, let's say you bonk headfirst into a wall, you're going to lose about 5 entire seconds just trying to get back up to speed, trying to get into the air again, and continue the track. So that's a lot of time lost. It's a really huge punishment, especially for a category like all trophy races, where time is everything. Hover car, on the other hand, you will stop dead in your tracks if you hit something head on, but if you hit like the side of a rock somewhere, you won't lose all of your speed. We just saw Mano do that a little bit, where he bonked into the side, and he didn't really lose all of his speed entirely. So there's a lot of cool ways to manipulate that by running into walls and... not like that. Running into walls and trying to send yourself off in a different direction because you don't lose that much speed. Car and plane, if you hit something like a wall... that was a really rough spike wall, wow. If you hit something like a wall in car or plane, you're going to lose a ton of speed, and you're going to... sometimes you just stop dead in your tracks, and there's not much you can do about it. So you'll notice one of the things they're doing is they are sneaking left and right in the hovercraft. There is a very strange interaction in Diddy Kong Racing where turning in the hovercar vehicle is actually much, much faster than just driving straight, stuff like that. So as a result, we abuse that by turning left and right and left and right, and you know, we can still go in a straight line or make very wide turns that way and do it much, much faster than we would be able to if we were just turning normally. So Mano is out of the hover tracks for now. We're going to see one more of those in this race. And it looks like Mad Scientist is just heading into his last lap of Pirate Lagoon, one of my favorite tracks in this game. It's kind of the Jungle Falls of hovercraft, I'd say. Crescent Island is another awesome track. Generally speaking, I think Sherbet Island, this tropical world that they're currently racing through, is one of the best worlds in the game. I think every track is very cool, very fun and unique. Speedrunning, however, really changes your opinion on those things. And for the most part, the first 3 tracks we've seen so far, Whale Bay, the first one, Pirate Lagoon, and now Crescent Island, are very, very good tracks. But the track coming up, Treasure Caves, while a fun track casually, is one of the most inconsistent ones in the game. So we'll see Mano get into that in a moment here. Looks like Mad Scientist is taking a detour up onto the roof. An interesting thing to note as well, lag plays a really big part in this game, and actually is a very big factor in determining how fast you go. Naturally, if we want to go fast, we want to hit all the zippers that we see them going over. Like Mano just went over, like Mad Scientist just went over one. But the quality of that boost that you get from those zippers really changes depending on how laggy the game is. Sometimes lag works in your favor, sometimes it doesn't. So, again, very, very tight track here, Treasure Caves, which Mano is on. You can see one slight mistake there, hitting a bad angle and grabbing the blue or the green balloon by accident. I bonk into that corner like every time. I have been there. That happens all the time to me. It's so dark. It's hard to see like exactly where it is. So you can see it's an extremely short track. But what most players will try to do is they'll grab the green balloon that's up in the tunnel here, and they will try to use it to link this zipper with the one that he's going to drive into right now. So they would have used the blue balloon in between there. Doing so is the fastest way to do the track, but it is exceptionally inconsistent. Most top runners of this game, it is their least favorite track, hands down. Mano's finishing up his second trophy, looking good, and Mad Scientist headed into his second lap of Treasure Caves. So there's definitely some skill differences between the two, as we can see already. Mad Scientist slowly falling behind as the race goes onward, but I think we can attribute that primarily to a difference in skill regarding vehicle. Mano is going to have a lot more experience in plane and hover car in comparison to a newer player, where car is very easy to understand. That is a rough bonk for Mano. Youch. Car is overall the easiest vehicle to understand. It's just kind of left and right. There's a little bit of controlling the car in the air while you're driving, but not too much of it. It's mostly just left and right. Hover car, there are some places where you have to control yourself in the air, which is pretty interesting. And it's also there's a lot of finesse to it. In order to go fast in it, it's not just pressing the A button or tapping the A button like it is in car. It's managing your snaking well. It's managing your A tapping well. It's a pretty complicated vehicle. And then plane, of course, introduces an entire other axis to your gameplay, which complicates it so much further, going up and down rather than just left and right. And it's a really important thing to take into account when you're trying to go fast in plane. Your movement and the line that you take to get to things like blue balloons and zippers becomes a lot more important. Mano just finished up Everfrost Peak. This is a very, very complex track, as we see Mad Scientist continuing to play it. There's a lot of very, very precise movements you have to make in order to grab some of these blue balloons and keep yourself on the perfect line. And you also see them barrel rolling in the plane. And Mad Scientist actually has the speedometer on, and if we see him barrel roll again, pay attention to that thing. It's going to jump up. Barrel rolling is much, much faster than just regular flying. There it is. So, what's another interesting thing about Everfrost Peak, pressing the A button in any vehicle when you're boosting actually makes you lose speed. It brings you back down to your normal average speed. So the key here then is to basically never touch the A button in Everfrost Peak. You can get through the entire track just boosting. And if you watch some of the top players have some races in this tournament, you will definitely run into some very, very crazy gameplay where they just fling themselves through the track. And keep in mind, the whole time, they haven't even touched the button that makes you drive forward. Walrus Cove up here now. This is another pretty technical track overall. It's not incredibly difficult, but there are some areas where making the wrong movement can lose you a lot of time. This little canyon, this little valley in particular, getting through that quickly with the boost there is really, really hard. There's also a crazy ending here where you can use a blue balloon, go into that zipper, and fling yourself across the finish line, which is a really cool way to end the track. Snowball Valley is another very, very tight car track. It's very short. It takes around 45 seconds to get through, and there's essentially nothing but boosts the entire time. There's a blue balloon there, there's a blue balloon there, and you want to try and grab all of those as you're going through it. So now he should take the left path this time. There's a blue balloon. Here's another blue balloon. They're littered all over the track, and as speedrunners, we gotta use those because we want to go really fast, and boosting makes us go really, really fast. As you can see, however, boosting like that, you start to lose a lot of control. The terrain in this game and the car do not get along. They are total adversaries, hands down. Another double boost for Mano, looking good so far. And a 51, not too bad. Continuing on to Frosty Village. Now, this is a very interesting track because for most new players trying to get into the game, they're going to have a lot of problems here because of how laggy the game is. This snow graphic that is over the screen while you're outside causes so much lag. It's very, very difficult to keep control of your vehicle while the game is losing so many frames to this one little graphic that's on screen. The lag doesn't just affect how fast you're going. It doesn't limit you in that way alone. It can also just eat your inputs, which is hard to keep in mind when you're like, but I pressed turn, I pressed R, I pressed B, I shouldn't have, that shouldn't have happened. Well, what's more likely is your input was just consumed by the game. and it didn't think that you actually did that. Mano taking a bath. That's got to be some pretty cold water, to be honest. I'm not going to recommend that to our viewers. That would really not be the coziest thing in the world. You get hypothermia. Not cool. As Mano finishes up his last lap here, we're seeing Mad Scientist take on Frosty Village, and we can start to see where those minutes. Boy, that was an interesting. He decided to take a look into the woods there, I guess. There's an interesting change you can see as the race goes on, and you can see where players start to lose seconds, start to lose minutes on somebody who's just a little bit more experienced in some of the other vehicles in the game and has played some of these tracks for a lot longer. Okay, heading into, honestly, I think this is probably my favorite world in the game. Dragon Forest has a lot of very interesting tracks. Some top runners might disagree with me on that, but I love them. Boulder Canyon is very, very fun. There's a huge jump that you can do here as you go into the castle. The music on this track is awesome, while unfortunately we can't hear it currently. Both players, I believe, have the music turned off because the music causes a lot of lag, and there's already enough lag. Turning the music off can save you like 15 to 25 seconds, depending on your gameplay and things like that. So it's definitely worth having the music off, even though the music in this game is awesome. I love the theme of Boulder Canyon. The big castle here, we're not really sure why it's called Boulder Canyon. There are no boulders on this track. There's logs. You could have called it Log Canyon. But I think it's is it the Swedish version or the Japanese version? I don't remember, but there's another name for this track, and it's River Palace, which is like way cooler regarding the giant castle that is like literally 50% of the track. River Palace is a little bit nicer. I like it. Mad Scientist getting a start here. These logs on this track, I think we might see Mad Scientist run into a couple of them, are particularly cruel. The logs are. They do some very mean things. They are like magnets to the hovercraft. If you touch it, it'll just like fling you backwards, which is really not fun. Greenwood Village, another very well-themed track. This is an awesome-looking one. And it's also very, very technical, very, very tight turns that you have to take. The AI largely stays out of your way. If you're running fast enough, you'll probably run into the back end of them while you're finishing your third lap, about. So it's pretty interesting just in terms of like, the AI is kind of like the point of the trophy race. Like you're racing all these other characters, but none of them are really that big of a problem. So it's really just you and the controller at this point, and how well you can execute some of these really tight turns. The S turn that Mano's gonna go into right now, this is a really tight one that's very, very that everybody bonks there every time, just because of how complex it is and how hard it is to get past. Great spike ball dodge. That was horrifying. Holy crap. Mad Scientist finishing up Boulder Canyon here. Picking up some extra bananas. Looking like he's hungry. Can't blame the guy. No. The real reason he's picking up those bananas, however, bananas work like coins in Mario Kart games. They will increase your speed very slightly per banana, up to a max of 10. So once you hit 10, your speed's not going to increase any more than it already has. It is, however, worth sometimes picking up some extra bananas. If you get shot by the AI, you'll lose 2 of your bananas, so now you're going to automatically be going slower. So Windmill Plains, this is another really cool track, just in terms of its design and its theming again. This track actually has an out-of-bounds trick on it, and it is horribly infamous for being one of the hardest in the game to execute, especially in a very tense, very input-heavy, very tiring run like all trophy races. So I'll point out where that is in just a moment here as Mano gets back to it. Essentially what they can do is they can go through this air zipper and turn to the right, and there's a hill on the right side that they can barrel roll over, and it will get them out of bounds. It's a really crazy clip. If you continue watching this tournament, you'll definitely see it from some of the runners that have practiced it a little bit more. And we can see the terrain giving Mad Scientist a hard time there. The terrain in this game really does not appreciate the car at all. There's a lot of very strange interactions with the terrain in the car that they don't get along, man. Okay, Mad Scientist just finishing up Greenwood Village, going into Windmill Plains for himself. Seen some barrel rolls here from Mano. Getting a little dizzy. Can't go fast without getting a little dizzy. There's the triple. Nice. And Mano finishing up Windmill Plains.
Haunted Woods.
Haunted Woods is another car track, and this one is another very, very tight track. There are 2 points of this track. Uh-oh. There we go. Looks like he's using some lag reduction strats here. Just letting the AI get ahead of him so that he gets a good boost. No. Here is the first jump is very, very hard to make. You have to essentially be turning while you hit that zipper and tap the B button, and you'll get yourself a very powerful turn that will send you flying down the track. That second portion, right before the finish line, is another one that there's 2 zippers that are very close together, and hitting them at the same time. Oh, that was a pretty good jump. It's a shame he blocked. So there's one zipper, and the second zipper is right here, and you can actually chain those 2 together and go really, really fast through this section. So again, another pretty short car track, generally speaking. And also very terrain heavy. They really got crazy with the terrain, and it doesn't treat you well. Mad Scientist is finishing up the final lap of Windmill Plains. We'll see him in the spooky forest of Haunted Woods in just a moment here. Mano, however, is going to enter into his final trophy of the race. Future Funland is home to 4 of the toughest tracks in the game. They are very mechanically complex. There's a lot of technical skill involved to get fast times here. And the very first of which, luckily, is probably the hardest track in the game. It's a plane track called Space Dust Alley. Wow, that was a really, really weird barrel roll interaction on the side of the wall there. That was crazy. Anyway, that was cool. As we can see, there are an unreal amount of places to bonk on this track. Hearing a tiny rage honk from Mano there. There are flying meatballs at the beginning of the race there. There's these two blue balloons that if you're going too fast, you will actually clip through and you won't be able to grab them. There's those electrical wires at the top there. They're not really wires. They're more like just electrical energy, like arcs. If you run into those, you'll get shot down by them. You'll hit the ground and you'll lose bananas. There's a spaceship that's trying to shoot at you. There's all these pillars that are very, very easy to run into. Generally speaking, it is the most ridiculous track in the game, and seeing somebody do it quickly is really crazy. Otherwise, it is a very, very tough track to get past on good pace. Most people going for a personal best in this category are going to start the run from here. There's no requirement for where you have to start your All Trophy Races run. So those, luckily, I mean, again, like I said, luckily, Space Dust Alley is the first one, so we can just kind of grind it until we get a good time we're happy with, and then we can continue with the run. Mad Scientist looks like he's doing pretty good so far. Again, you can take as much time as you want naturally. Both players are playing as TT the Clock. He is incredibly overpowered in comparison to all the other characters in the game. Much, much faster. His handling isn't as great, but if you work on your finessing how he moves a little bit, you can get through it just fine. But you go ahead and take your time in plane. That's perfectly fine. The thing with plane is, however, if you want to go really fast, you have to YOLO, like every single plane track. And that's very, very risky. A lot of things can go wrong, especially on this track, or Hot Top Volcano with the out-of-bounds trick, or Windmill Plains. Darkmoon Caverns, this is probably a fan favorite, I'd say. It has one of the coolest sounding songs in the game. Unfortunately, we don't get to hear it right now. That's okay. But it's also very, very difficult. It's very tight, and it's also a very long track. So it has a lot of the very frustrating, very complex maneuvering of past shorter tracks, but it's very long. So getting through the whole thing without any mistakes is pretty difficult. Granted, like 8 seconds of this whole thing are just going through those two loops where both players are just going to hold right on the joystick, and that'll make him... That's actually faster than just riding the loop normally. No one actually has any idea why that is the case. Even so, it's still about 1 minute and 40 seconds usually for a player to clear this track on average pace, and it takes it out of you real quick. Mad Scientist getting a cool looking boost out of the crater section. He's in the S-turn, and he's going to do the gigantic U-turn right now. That is a particularly cruel spot in this speed run. That whole thing is just really wonky, broken terrain that like barely works, and trying to take a really sharp turn all the way along that whole thing is so hard. Mano's moving on to Star City now. This is the second to last track we're going to see. And this is another really tight track. He's got all these 90-degree turns he's got to make, which are pretty tough. But overall, it is probably the easiest track in Future Funland. For the most part, the least mistakes will happen here. It's a lot of just pretty simple turns until you get into the city, and then you just have to make the tighter turns, and you're usually out just fine. There is a bridge, as you just saw we just saw him cross. The bridge on this track can be a huge issue. You won't see very many top players falling off of it, but for newer players, it's pretty common that we'll see them fall off the bridge and lose a ton of time because you have to drive all the way back around and get back on top of the bridge and continue forward. So it can be pretty easy to fall off. Sometimes that'll happen. We really hope it doesn't. But so Mad Scientist now about a whole track behind Mano. Looking at the 2-3 laps, this track, the Star City, is about the same length as Space Dust Alley, the first plane track that we saw. So we can kind of compare those times and see how things went. Time for Spaceport Alpha. This track is really interesting. The Japanese version of the game actually has an out of bounds on it. It's ending on a plane track like this is really difficult too, because if something goes wrong, are we gonna see him do it? We're gonna see him do it. Oh, so close. So up on top of that pillar there's actually just straight up missing collision. It looks like he's gonna give it another shot here. You need to grab the shield because all these shots are being fired at you. So you have to... Oh, he's taking this really sharp. Oh, man, that's really close. Oof. Big bonk there. All right, so that's a good example of the huge 5-second time loss that you can have. Mano really, really persevering here. He's going to get this out of bounds, and it's going to be super hype when he does. Somebody stole his balloon. Oh, no. Now that is classic.
Wrong way.
And we're seeing Mad Scientist catch up here in the background. Just a little bit. Oh, man. Oh, so close. Another disappointed honk there. Can't blame the guy. The Z button is usually for using items, but the secondary function of it is to express extreme angst towards this video game, which is entirely understandable. Alright, Mad Scientist's turn now. I haven't noticed, believe it or not, whether or not he's running on the Japanese version of the game. I'm not entirely sure. We'll see if he tries to go for it in a moment here. He did not go for the Hot Top Volcano out of bounds, so I will be a little bit more surprised. Okay, yeah, I don't think he's going for it. Mano just struggling to grab that out of bounds trick. It's a tough one. He's doing a rather YOLO setup for it. There is an easier one that you can go for that's a little bit more consistent, but sometimes that's just the way it goes. Alright, looks like we are quite literally neck and neck now. One lap ahead for Mano, one lap behind for Mad Scientist. And he's not going to go for it one more time. Going to finish out this race strong. A 33 flat for Mano. So most likely not the time that he's looking for exactly. I think he's probably a little bit rusty. We'll see what Mad Scientist ends up here. He's actually... Is he on PB pace? I'm not actually sure what his real PB is. I don't know if he's updated on the leaderboard. But we'll see how this is looking here as he finishes up. This is definitely sub 34. $33.40. All right, only 40 seconds behind Mano. Okay, you're gonna see if we can get him in here. For...
Hey.
Oh, hey.
Sup?
How's it going, man?
Pretty excited. Pretty excited right now.
Was that a PB?
Yes, it was.
Congrats, man.
By like 35 seconds. I am ecstatic right now.
That is really awesome. Way to go.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So, what did you feel went really well in this run?
Well, first things first, and I always comment about this whole thing. So, my playing times were pretty solid, I feel. I did some solid loops. I didn't do any, not loops, sorry. I did solid barrel rolls. I didn't do any loop-to-loops this time. That's usually where I have issues is where I lose control of the plane and I do the wrong maneuver. There are some really strong times. I'm just going through my splits right now. Like first trophy race was kind of average. Whale Bay was kind of garbage, but like I've been practicing a lot with learning how to not optimize, but work with the hovercraft more. So like Boulder Canyon, I like had a split of like -60 at a gold split, and I was like super excited because I actually felt I had a lot of control. So yeah, I'm pumped right now. so a lot of good progress, a lot of different areas, and it was just a solid race. Like just solid numbers all around from what I can tell. So I'm really happy with how this turned out.
Nice. That's really exciting stuff.
Thank you. Yeah.
So was this your last race?
Yes, for this bracket. So, but I don't think I won this one. But that's okay. I had a lot of fun. That's all that matters.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Was this your first DKR tournament then?
Absolutely.
And did you enjoy it?
Oh, it's been a blast. So much fun. I love it.
Do you think you'll be sticking around the community to play some more, do some more RTA races, do some more speed runs, or?
Absolutely. So I'm actually thinking once I learn some of the more complex tricks, such as the out of bounds glitches, I'm going to start working on 100% or any percent, just to kind of start branching out a little bit, because I've gotten pretty comfortable with the time trials. I know the tracks pretty well. ATR is a good way to really burn in how to get these tracks taken care of in a timely manner. And I just feel that 100% or 80% is the next logical thing to progress towards.
That's exciting stuff, man. Yeah, definitely. It'd be really cool to see you continue to play. I think you have a lot of potential, so keep at it. There's a lot of tricks to learn, but I think the more you play, the easier a lot of that stuff will come.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
So I don't think we're gonna get Mano in for any interviews. I think Mano is gonna have one more race left next week against myself. So I'm looking forward to that. And congratulations, Mad Scientist, on the big PB. Can't wait to see you go further.
Thank you. I'm excited too.
Was there anything else you wanted to add then?
I'm all set. I had a wonderful time with the race. Keep going, keep grinding. So good luck to you in your race when you go against Mano next week.
Thank you very much. Thanks, SpeedGaming, for hosting us once again. Hope everybody has a nice night, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks. Take care.